Welcome to another episode of Portside Conversations. I'm Laura Lee Shapiro, your host, owner of Where to Next Agency. And I am so excited that my guest today is none other than Brandon Halcomb. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. It's easier to pronounce it when we just call him Mr. Alaska. And that's how he is, known within the industry, or at least within my circles of those of us cruising. So today we are going to be talking all things Alaska. We are recording this almost April of 2026. So we are just coming up onto the start of the Alaska season. So the timing could not be more perfect. So thank you so much, Brendan, for joining me. Before we start talking all things Alaska, let's talk a little bit about all things Brendan. Just tell me a little bit about who you are and what your connection is to Alaska cruising, and then we'll dive into our portside conversation.
Yeah, sure thing. And thank you for the opportunity, Lori Lee, to speak to your viewers about Alaska. Always exciting to be able to talk to people about Alaska and give them some ideas about the great experiences they can have there. Yeah, I spent many years working on board cruise ships. If anyone is kind of familiar with those folks that work on board, we have contracts that we spend on board about 4 to 6, 7 months, depending on the role that you're in. So if I take all the contracts that I spent working in Alaska as part of being on board, I would have spent about 4 solid years just cruising the southeastern coastline of Alaska. So that could be Vancouver round trip sailings or Seattle round trip sailings or the open jaw Alaska sailings, really encompassing all of the ports, all of the glacial scenic areas of cruising. I just got very lucky for that to be part of my time being on board cruise ships. I got off cruise ships 11 years ago. My wife informed me that we were going to have a life, start a family, and so that's what we did. And as I got off cruise ship, I transitioned to working with the interior of Alaska. Excuse me. So for the last 11 years, I've been working with the interior of Alaska on the land and sea experiences that we can offer as part of cruise tours. So, all in all, about 15 years working with Alaska, whether it's the coastline, whether it's the interior of Alaska. Certainly feel very, very blessed to be able to have done so.
Sounds like an amazing career. I'm a little envious. So now that you've mentioned that, I know a lot of people are familiar with Alaskan cruises, whether it's the Inside Passage, round trip, Seattle, Vancouver, et cetera. But I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with what exactly a cruise tour is. So for those that don't know, that's where you're combining a sea portion and a land portion. So my question to you is, if people are just doing the Alaskan cruise, what are they missing out on from the interior?
More, it's important to remember that an Alaska cruise on its own merits does deliver so much of the promise of Alaska. And the promise of Alaska is what? It's wilderness and wildlife and mountains and glaciers. And that comes in many different forms in many different places. Now, it could be glaciers as part of glacial scenic areas of cruising, whether that's Glacier Bay or Hubbard Glacier or Trisian Fjord. It could be wilderness in the form of flight sightseeing amongst the national parks. It could be wildlife such as whale watching, but those iconic experiences, you do get them as part of an Alaska cruise. It's really important just to kind of start off the discussion that way. But when you think about a cruise tour, what you're thinking about always is more. You just get more of all of the iconic experiences that likely drove you to want to go to Alaska in the first place. So I always talk with travel partners or consumers about this. There's a reason that drives you to reach out to your travel partner, right? There's a reason that drives you to reach out to your travel partner and say, I'm interested in going to Alaska. Well, you get a lot of that as part of an Alaska cruise tour, a cruise. You just get more of it as part of a cruise tour. So the Alaska Trade Industry Association, they're an organization that's dedicated to promoting Alaska. And as part of their visitor research, they asked people in Alaska, hey, what was the reason that drove you to want to come to Alaska? And typically what comes back is they want scenic beauty and nature and outdoors and or wildlife. And so when you think about that as part of the land tour, when you think about that as part of the cruise tour, the lane component of the cruise tour experiences, well, you get more of those incredible, for example, mountain experiences, because the tallest peak in North America, Mount McKinley, which when measured from a base is bigger than Everest, to get some of those incredible views, well, you have to go to the interior of Alaska. If you want more wildlife, well, the big five of Alaska wildlife, the moose, the caribou, the grizzly, the Dall sheep, and to the lesser extent, wolves, because they're nocturnal, but predominantly the big opportunities for that are going to be in the interior of Alaska, in destinations like Denali National Park. And when you think about wilderness, well, there's lots of wilderness opportunities on the coastline, but Kachemak Bay State Park and Kenai Fjord National Park and Katmai National Park, but Denali National Park, that's all, a lot of it is in the interior of Alaska. So when you're thinking about your experience, what you're asking yourself is this a once in a lifetime experience? To the degree, is this meaningful for me to the degree that I want that more? I want to maximize, I want to get the most I'm going to ever get out of this experience? Because if the answer is yes, then the answer is a cruise tour.
Wonderful. Yeah, more is always better when it comes to cruising, if you ask me. So I'm glad that you mentioned Denali and the Big Five. How many of the Big Five have you personally witnessed in all of your years of being on land with Alaska?
All of them, in
Checked them
many,
all?
many different times. The wolves I've only seen once. Again, they're nocturnal, so
Right.
the opportunities to see them are a little bit more limited. But um, moose and caribou I see every year, as part of either going to Alaska for, in whatever capacity I'm going to, or hosting fams, things like that. Bears, pretty much every year. Dull sheep, you always see them. They're just a little bit higher up in the mountain ranges. Dull sheep are typically higher up, so you could see them, but it's not, an up
Right.
close
Right.
experience in any capacity. So you'll very consistently get those experiences. Again, depending on the time of the year that you're going, depending on what's happening on any given day. Alaska, as I always say to everyone, is the quintessentially natural destination. All of the experiences that we want, that makes it meaningful for us, that makes it special for us, they're a natural experience. So think about, when you're going to Alaska, how do you think about your itinerary? How do you think about the cruise tour that you select? How do you make some decisions so the natural experiences that are most important to you are the ones that you're maximizing the opportunity for? And that's going to be different for different people, but you want to
Right.
bucket it out. You want to make sure that, hey, those one, two, three things that are super important to me, that is going to allow me to come away from this experience and say, that was amazing. You want to be making your decisions about the cruise tour that you do, the itinerary that you do, the time of the year that you go, all of that, to maximize the opportunity to have those experiences.
Right.
But above all, um, you know, the longer you go to Alaska for, the more opportunities that you create for yourself, those magical natural moments to happen. So start with the maximal time that you can go to Alaska, and then start refining down to those individual
Right.
experiences that are going to be special for you.
Yeah, I always stress to people when they ask me about cruise and they say, "Oh, what's your favorite cruise or what's your favorite cruise line?" I say, "Well, it depends." Because
Yeah,
cruising is
absolutely.
not a one size fits all, and it's a different experience based on who you're traveling with and when you're going. And you touched on something really important, which is seasonality. I of course have not been to Alaska as many times as you, but I have been 3 times. And I've gone at different times of the year. I've gone in early May at the start of the season. I've gone in August at the height of the season, and I've gone in October at the tail end of the season. And it's very different experiences each time. And, we joke that the October one, we were there, I think, second or third week of October. It was right after the restart, from our pause that we don't speak
Yeah,
about. And so they were pushing the season as late as they possibly could. And so, granted, there were a lot of things that were closed. The whales were gone, the salmon were gone.
yeah,
But we were able to go much higher up into Glacier Bay because it was later in the season and the seal pups were not being born, so they could go further up. But I remember we were in Glacier Bay and there's people in the hot tub, and it was snowing on us, and it was the most authentic Alaskan experience to have it snowing on us. Yet when you go in August, people are in the pool and it's not snowing, and it's quite lovely as far as the weather, and the shore excursions are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, just touch on that, very quickly. As far as the seasonality, is there, I don't want to say a better time to go, because there's always a great time to go. Anytime you go, it's going to be a great experience. But if they're looking to experience something specific, like if they really want to see the whales, or they really want to see, the bears and the moose in Denali, are there certain times of the season, because it is a very short season, where they should focus more on one versus the other? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great point, and you're exactly right. It's not that there is a best time to go to Alaska, it's the different times or different parts of the season that are going to not necessarily deliver different experiences, but give you the opportunity or a greater opportunity for differing experiences. So you want to tailor the time that you're there to the experiences that are really meaningful and important to you. So yeah, I mean it's not a cure all, but as you go earlier in the season, what do you have? There's less people. That's always nice, right?
That
Because
is
the
nice.
the real the real meat of the Alaska season kicks in between the early to the middle part of June. That's when summer season high peak comes in. You get the most folks there. So going in May is going to be a really nice time to be there, just because there's less folks there. Now, something to consider is that with the interior of Alaska, a lot of it is shut down in the wintertime. A lot of these hotels, they don't open during the wintertime. So those first like a week or two of the season, they could be getting their legs underneath them a little bit. And so it's a consideration as part of going very, very early in the season. But early in the season, there's less folks there. It's really nice. Some better opportunities for wildlife in some cases, because the flora and the fauna in Alaska, which really grows out, isn't quite as grown out during that time. Obviously, you got the potential of some of the animals that are coming out of hibernation, depending on when the whales have migrated down the Pacific from Hawaii to the feeding grounds of Alaska. Usually they're there by that time, so you've got some great opportunities for whale watching as well. As you transition into June, well, different things are happening. You transition into middle of June, summer season. You have summer solstice on June 21st. So you're going to get the most sunlight
Great.
at any point in the Alaska season. That creates a lot more opportunities to do different things because it's just light all of the time. And then certainly you're starting to get the salmon to start to spawn in this window as well. Typically, again, these are all natural experiences, so
Right.
migration patterns and spawning seasons, they all change a little bit from season to season, but typically you're starting to have the salmon to start to spawn in this window. Now, if you want to see the salmon spawning upstream, well, you're going to have to be there in
Right.
this window. But the other thing that the salmon attract is the bears. And
Right.
so if you want to see the bears, you got to be there when the salmon is spawning, because that's what's creating that
Right. So it's
experience.
all it's
Eh,
all about timing.
Yeah. And then as you
Yeah.
transition into the back end of the year, again, you're outside of high season, so there's less folks as you pointed out. But then something that I love in Alaska is full foliage, which is
Yes.
really, really special. If you can get out into Denali National Park, for example, at full foliage, it is really, really beautiful. Now,
Right.
to your point, you're probably past the time when you're going to get any whale watching at that point,
Yeah.
because the migration is starting to happen. But the full foliage offers incredible views. And then, of course, if you are going to Fairbanks and you're pushing past middle of April, April 21st is considered to be the start of aurora viewing season in
Okay.
Fairbanks. The opportunities are marginal, depending on the time of the year and what's happening, but you could get some opportunities there past
Right.
that window.
Right.
So different points of the season for sure, going to offer different
Right.
experiences.
So you mentioned, very briefly, as far as the hotels in the interior. Now you mostly work with Celebrity, who does the cruise tours, and Celebrity is, how do you call it, premium brand. When they do a cruise tour through Celebrity, what can they expect as far as the hotels? Is it going to be comparable as far as the level of service? I mean, we're not talking roughing it in log cabins and porta potties, obviously. It is going to be up to, the standards of celebrity and what their guests have come to expect. But tell me a little bit as far as what the hotels are like, as far as the level of service and the location, because they do get some free time to go out and explore on their own, correct?
Yeah, a decent amount of free time. I mean, they're always going to have included experiences as part of the land tour. Think of these kind of like excursions, but they're built into the land tour. But then lots of opportunity, free time to explore and own. Now that could be doing optional excursions. It could just be doing their own thing, for sure. So yes, it does exist as part of that. There are three things that are important to us as part of the land tour experience with celebrity. Number one, we want to be in the destination that delivers on why our guests wanted to go to Alaska in the first place. Because you could really be in a lot of different places in Alaska. So we want to be in the places
Right.
that deliver on the wilderness and the wildlife and the mountains and the glaciers. Now, when we're there, we are going to stay in the best property available in the area. And crucially, that property is going to be close to local communities. We want our guests to have the opportunity to go into communities, to spend time with Alaskans, to be having great local experiences. Now, it does mean different things in different places in terms of how that plays out. So, for example, in Girdwood, we stayed at a property called Hotel Alyeska, which is bar none the best property in Alaska. It's just incredible. It's got four Diamond Star restaurant at the top of the mountain, a Nordic spa, heated saltwater pool that looks out over lush valleys. It's amazing. We want to go to Girdwood. Hotel Alyeska is the best property there, and that's why we stayed there. Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge, another great example, top three property in Alaska, has these amazing views of the Alaska mountain ranges, including Denali, the tallest peak in North America, and just 5 minutes away from the town of Talkeetna to have those great local experiences. And then you kind of make a comparison against, for example, Denali Park Village, which is about 12 minutes away from the gates of Denali National Park. All of the major properties are outside of the gates of the park because it's a protected wilderness area. But all of the properties in the area were developed as national park style accommodation. So yes, it is comfortable,
Right.
but it's not Alyeska luxury
Right.
because
Okay.
there's nothing in the area that does. So we're always going to stay in the best property available. Sometimes that's going to mean incredible properties like Hotel Alyeska, and sometimes it's going to be a property like Denali Park Village, which fire pits on the outside, surrounded by
Right.
the Alaska mountain range, but more in the style of kind of national park style accommodation.
Wonderful. So, if they're doing one of the cruise tours where it's a combination of land and sea, obviously, I guide my clients that they can do it either the land first and then the cruise, or the cruise first and then the land. And there's benefits to doing it both different ways. But let's share a little bit with the viewers on logistics, getting from A to B, whether they're going northbound, southbound, land first, land second, but getting from the land portion to the cruise portion or vice versa. You guys use the train, correct?
Yeah. So structurally, there's always two opportunities. Either our guests can fly into Vancouver, they would do a 7 night northbound sailing up to Seward. This is our embark debark port for Alaskan interior, which point they would join the land tour and go into the interior of Alaska for 2 to 6 nights and then fly home from Anchorage or Fairbanks. Or alternately, they can fly into Anchorage or Fairbanks and, to your point, do the 2 to 6 night land tour that takes them down to Seward, where they would join the 7 night southbound sailing down to Vancouver, and they'd fly home from there. So they always have the opportunity to be able to do it as part of a northbound or a southbound experience. And as you rightly point out, there's no right answer to that, northbound or southbound. There's just preferences that folks have
Right.
going in either direction. It really kind of depends on the individual person. But as we're traveling in the interior of Alaska, yeah, we use both motor coach and rail as part of transportation during the land tour. Now, if we've got any motor coach nerds out there, of which I count myself one of them, really beautiful Prevost luxury motor coaches that we're leveraging, including bathrooms on board, really nice motor coaches. But yeah, rail is a big part of the experience. In Alaska, there's one state-owned organization. It's called the Alaska Railroad. They own the engines, they own the rail lines. However, the rail carriages themselves can either be independently owned or state owned. And they really run the gamut from, pretty economical everyday commuter up
Right.
to a luxury rail experience. We simply use the best that's there. They're called the Wilderness Express rail carriages, and they're beautiful. 80 persons up top, luxury, wide, well apportioned leather seating. There's power ports in the seats, bar service to the seats, specialty cocktails, coffees, beers. It's all available for purchase. There's a restaurant on board, which is incredible.
And those are
There's
the ones with
beautiful,
the domed roof, right? So you can see
exactly,
everything.
exactly. Beautiful domed roofs and ceilings to be able to get the views as you're trundling through. So every single cruise tour that we offer has a segment on board the Wilderness Express rail carriage. Some of our cruise tours have multiple rail segments. One of our cruise tours travels exclusively by Wilderness Express rail carriage. So really, if you're looking for a cruise tour with more rail, less rail, you can certainly pick a cruise tour that offers that.
Right. So a lot of the experiences that they'll get on the ship, well, not a lot, but some of the experiences will carry over onto land. And I'm thinking specifically with regards to how we've got a cruise director that, helps with the programming and they keep things flowing. They have a dedicated, not cruise director, but land director that travels with the group, correct?
Yeah, so a really important part of the celebrity experience is that, which is that it's a fully escorted experience.
Okay.
So what happens is that when our guests are in the interior of Alaska, they're met by one person, their dedicated tour guide, and they introduce them to a dedicated motor coach driver who show them a dedicated deluxe motor coach. Now, typically speaking, I'm going to call it, 44, 46 celebrity guests that will be on board the motor coach with that driver guide team dedicated to them for the duration of the land tour. So the tour guide does everything that you would expect a tour guide to do. They're, talking about
Right.
their life. They're talking about the destination. They're making dining recommendations. They're booking optional landing excursions. They're pre-checking our guests in, so when they get to the property, their keys is handed to them. They don't have to stand in line. And the drivers, of course, driving, but they're also transporting the luggage between the motor coach and the hotel room and
Okay.
back down each day. So our guests don't have to be doing that. So it's
Wonderful.
this combination of driver guide team that we really feel kind of delivers on that experience, the experience of being in Alaska.
Right. And are the cruise tours, are they capacity controlled, like for a certain sailing date that would be a cruise tour, land sea combination? Do they limit it, or is it possible that you're going to have, 4 or 5 motor coaches with a couple of hundred people doing this?
They are limited, but they're limited predominantly by hotel and rail space
Got
because
it.
it's very limited. So yes, there may be multiple motor coaches that are doing the same land tour, but they're not traveling together.
Got it.
They're on their own independent schedule in the sense of they're on their motor coach with their tour guide, with their driver. Our capacity limitations, yes, are driven by the hotel and rail space. It's a good point though about the schedules and folks being together and traveling together. The prevailing sentiment that always comes to me is the idea that rail is better, more rail is better, exclusively rail is better. You want rail over motor coach. And I think it's always a worthy point to say to folks that rail is great, but don't underestimate the value of having some motor coach as part of that travel experience, or the value of motor coach travel experience in general. Because when you're on the motor coach, the tour guide and driver can structure things a little bit differently to be unique to their group, to the
Okay.
experience that they're having. The Alaska Railroad don't care. The train is leaving. You need to be
Right.
on the train at the time that the train
Yes.
leaves, and you better be there, and you got
Right.
to get off when you get off.
Don't miss
And it
that
is what it
train.
is. Don't miss that train, and we will of course make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
But my point being is that when you're driving to Denali and you get to some viewing points and the mountain is out, the driver will pull over,
Right.
for people to get those incredible views. If there was a little bit of an adjusted schedule and it makes sense for us to leave a little bit later that day, the tour guide and the driver will make that decision to customize it to their
Right.
land tour.
Right.
So, there's some real value of a motor coach in terms
Hmm.
of letting the tour guide and driver um, adjust the
Right.
schedule, the itinerary, or the day to day a
Yeah.
little bit.
No, that
to
makes
make sure
sense. I
that
mean,
everyone's having the best experience.
if you're in the motor coach, and I've done this before where the guide will say, "Oh, look at the left side. You'll see, a family of moose with
Yeah.
the new babies," and the driver can slow down. If you're on the train,
Yes.
they're going to
Yeah.
say, "Okay, quick, look out the window."
Yes. Yes.
And it doesn't slow down for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is something to be said for, having the customization to just, little things like that. So yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Well, uh, this has been really a great conversation, very enlightening. I like to finish up my Portside Conversations doing a lightning round or a speed round. Just first thing that pops into your head. So I'm going to fire off some questions for you.
Okay.
What Alaska moment stands out most from your years of experience?
Oh, I'm going to go with two, if I may.
Yes.
The first is a couple years ago, I was hosting a fam trip with some of our valued travel partners, pushed out from Harris Bay, beautiful day on the Kenai Peninsula. Baby whale, a calf, a humpback calf, started jumping out of the water, and we literally got a 25-minute show
Wow.
of this humpback calf who was just leaping fully out of the water. It was a pretty incredible experience. And then about 3 years back, I want to say maybe 4 years back, I was doing a series of travelogue videos in the interior of Alaska, and I got the opportunity to interview one of the native elders at the Alaska Native Heritage Center. An incredible woman, 90 years old or so, spoke about her life growing up and part of the native tribes in Alaska over the years, and it was a really really special moment.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that at all. And unfortunately, in the essence of time, that would probably have to be a whole other conversation to talk about, getting to know the native tribes and their way of life. Okay, so next question for you, personal experience. What is your favorite season, spring, summer, or late fall?
Oh, I mean, I love the fall, but if I was to kind of hit one time of year, probably be early June.
Okay,
I love that kind of window. Not quite in summer season or the heart of summer season yet. Good chance for the Yosemite spawning. Some great opportunities for bears, depending on where you are. I think it kind of hits a lot of the buckets.
right. Okay, so on the cruise portion of an Alaskan cruise tour, balcony cabin or the retreat?
Retreat. I mean, always retreat. Absolutely.
Once you try the retreat, you'll never go
Yeah,
back. I
it's
know. I
tough.
warn my clients. I tell them all the time, once you do this,
Yeah.
you're never going back.
But that's got nothing to do with Alaska. That's just got to do with the pretty spectacular job that they do up there at the
Yeah.
retreat
Yeah.
on our celebrity ships. Yeah, that's special.
Okay. Glacier watching with a glass of wine or a cup of hot chocolate.
Oh, cup hot chocolate. I don't drink, so that's an easy one for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say cup hot chocolate. I'll do an addendum. Um, Even though all of the glacial scenic areas of cruising are individually in their own unique and special way, I wouldn't put one above the other. My personal love is for Hubbard Glacier. And then I would add an addendum on my addendum that if you can get on one of the small boat tours
Okay.
that go out to Hubbard, particularly special experience.
Okay. That was one of my other questions is with the cruise shore excursions, land, air, or sea, because you have all three options.
Oh, well, yeah, let's say that that was part of the glacier. I'm not going to say air. What I will say is up top.
Right.
Everyone should see Alaska from up top.
Right.
Now, if you could do that as part of a flight sightseeing experience and do it, right? Whether you are doing it in Ketchikan as part of the Misty Fjords or in the interior as part of Denali, do it, get up there. It's really, really special. However, if you're not going to get up on a flight sightseeing tour, just make sure you get up into a mountain range, right? You can
Right.
do that as part of the Yukon and White Pass Rail in Ketchikan. You could do
Yeah.
that as part of a funicular in Ketchikan. And frankly, if you've got the legs for it and you like hiking, you can walk up Mount Juneau as well.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different opportunities in order to get up and get those incredible views
Right.
of Alaska from up top. Just get up top somehow in whatever capacity you can.
Okay, final question. Do you have a favorite port of call in Alaska?
Yeah, Seward. I love
Really?
Seward.
Okay.
It's so special, and I think sometimes folks think about Seward as um, kind of an embark debark port just to get to Anchorage, or just get to get on the ship. It's not. Seward is on the Kenai Peninsula. The Kenai Peninsula is known as the destinations where Alaskans go to play, particularly those folks from Anchorage. Seward is gorgeous. The Kenai Peninsula, I'll just put it there, is gorgeous. You've got Kachemak Bay State Park, the first designated state park in Alaska. You have the Chugach Mount, the mountain ranges. It's really beautiful. Spend some time in Seward.
Well, no arguments here. I've been to Seward and I have to agree it is beautiful. So that is the end of our Portside conversation, talking all things Alaska. Thank you so much, Brendan, for your time. I really appreciate it. And to my viewers, I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Please be sure to like and subscribe so that you get future notifications for other podcasts, video podcasts on Portside Conversations. And please comment below if you have a favorite port in Alaska. I'd love to hear what your favorite is. Thank you again, Brendan. I appreciate your time. Everybody have a great day.